Imagine night falling over a continent that holds the world's youngest population. A farmer checks a phone that never charged. A clinic powers down its vaccine fridge. A student closes a textbook because the light went out again. Now imagine, in the same region, an audacious promise: plug West Africa into an engine so big that classrooms glow after sunset, factories hum through the evening, and startups build the next generation of African hardware. That promise is attached to one headline that has set social media on fire: Traore's $800 billion plan to power all of West Africa. Tonight, we are going to separate myth from mechanics, rumor from reality, and show what it would actually take to flip the switch for an entire region. Start with the man at the center of the story. Ibrahim Traoré, the military leader of Burkina Faso, has become a symbol of self-reliance to many. His speeches push a narrative of sovereignty: make what we need, build what we can, and stop outsourcing ambition. That message resonates because the grid is not just about electricity, it is about dignity, health, education, and jobs. It is about whether a cocoa cooperative can run cold storage, whether a bank can keep the ATM online in a rural town, whether a midwife can rely on a powered clinic without a diesel generator. But let's be clear from the beginning. You have seen videos and posts claiming a single $800 billion megaplan, 11 giant dams, a smart grid that spans the region, a master switch that lights up 15 nations. The question we must answer is simple: is there a concrete, financed, shovel-ready plan at that scale? Or is this a narrative built from smaller, real initiatives stitched together with wishful thinking and patriotic energy? To answer, we need to understand the power puzzle in West Africa as it exists today. West Africa already has a framework to trade power across borders. It is called the West African Power Pool, a specialized agency under ECOWAS. The idea is elegant: some countries have hydropower potential, others have gas, others have sun and wind, and by tying the systems together with long transmission lines and common market rules, everybody gets cheaper, more reliable electricity. Lines are being built. Interconnectors are coming online. It is not science fiction, it is happening. What is not happening, at least not yet, is a unified, Traore-branded, $800 billion blueprint that has been approved by governments, financed by lenders, contracted to builders, and scheduled to deliver power plant by plant, line by line. That gap between viral headline and formal project is precisely where this documentary lives. So let's reverse engineer the headline and build the plan ourselves, the way an energy ministry would. If you truly wanted to power all of West Africa, what would $800 billion even buy? We will break it into generation, transmission, storage, and distribution. We will cost it, stage it, and pressure test it against the realities of permitting, hydrology, currency risk, and security. Begin with generation. Hydropower. The Volta Basin system that touches Burkina Faso, Ghana, Côte d'Ivoire, Togo, and Benin has room for more reservoirs and run-of-river projects, but hydropower is capital-intensive, site-specific, and sensitive to rainfall. A single mid-sized dam can cost in the hundreds of millions and take years to build, from feasibility studies to resettlement to concrete. Burkina Faso itself has dams like Samandeni on the Mohand, built primarily for irrigation with a modest hydro component. Scaling from a dozen agricultural or multi-purpose dams to a fleet of power-centric, grid-connected plants requires detailed hydrology, flood modeling, and a realistic understanding of climate variability. You would not bet the entire region on hydro alone. Add solar. This is where West Africa shines, literally. Utility-scale solar can now be procured at prices that, in the right conditions, rival gas generation during daylight. But solar needs land, grid connections, and the ability to handle intermittency. Pair that with batteries in the hundreds of megawatt-hours to shift sunlight into the evening peak. In places with strong afternoon winds and coastal corridors, onshore wind can complement solar's daily profile. Put together, the sun and wind portfolio can eat a big share of daytime demand, with batteries smoothing the ride. Gas remains part of the near-term answer. Nigeria's gas turbines already anchor the regional grid. Modern combined cycle plants, if well run and properly fueled, provide dispatchable power that keeps factories running when the sun is down and reservoirs are low. A pragmatic plan uses gas as a bridge while renewables ramp and transmission expands. That is not a betrayal of climate goals, it is how you keep the lights on without bankrupting utilities. Now, transmission. If you want to power all of West Africa, you do not build isolated islands of electricity. You string high-voltage lines across borders and loop them so that a failure in one corridor does not black out a neighbor. Transmission is slower and more controversial than people think. It requires rights-of-way, compensation, route changes around protected areas, and coordination between regulators who do not always move at the same speed. But it is where much of the magic happens. A strong spine from Nigeria through Benin and Togo into Ghana, with branches north to Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, allows countries with cheaper power to sell to those with deficits, shaving off the most expensive kilowatt-hours that currently come from diesel. Add a westward arc into Senegal and the Gambia, and an eastern link toward Côte d'Ivoire and Guinea, and you have the bones of a true regional market. Storage is the quiet hero. Batteries are no longer a pilot project, they are grid assets. In a place where thermal plants can be fuel-constrained and solar is plentiful and cheap at noon, batteries flatten the duck curve, provide frequency response, and protect the grid from short, sharp imbalances that would otherwise cause outages. They also defer some transmission by shifting power locally. A serious plan would layer batteries at substations across the region, not as fashion accessories but as engineered components in the dispatch stack. Next, distribution. You do not electrify a region with power plants and high-voltage lines alone. You must rebuild the last mile, poles, wires, transformers, meters. You must fix the revenue cycle so utilities can collect without losing half their energy to technical losses and theft. Smart meters matter. Prepaid systems matter. Tariffs have to be politically acceptable but also cost-reflective enough to cover maintenance, or the system collapses under debt and diesel generators take over again. What does all of this cost? $800 billion is a large number, but spread across multiple countries and a decade or two, it becomes less fantastical. Think of it as layers, tens of billions for solar and wind farms and their batteries, tens of billions for gas conversion and efficiency, tens of billions for hydropower where sites make sense, and tens of billions for regional transmission and national distribution upgrades. In practice, you would not raise a single $800 billion check. You would stack money from development banks, export credit agencies, sovereign green bonds, private independent power producers, climate funds, and, increasingly, domestic pension funds seeking stable, regulated returns. Each project would have its own balance sheet, its own offtake agreement, and its own construction schedule. The headline is one number, the reality is 1,000 contracts. What about Burkina Faso specifically, the country most associated with the viral claim? Its access to electricity remains low, especially in rural areas. That is a challenge and an opportunity. It means distributed solutions like mini-grids and home solar systems can scale faster than big grid extensions in some districts, while grid projects move forward in parallel. It also means that new industrial parks will want firm power, driving demand for a balanced generation mix that is not captive to a single technology. If this plan were real at the advertised scale, how would it roll out? First, you would map demand growth by sector, households, commerce, mines, agriculture, and industry. Then you would sequence generation to meet those profiles. A region-wide day-one target might be to eliminate the most expensive diesel-based electricity by injecting solar and battery hybrids into weak nodes, stabilizing the grid where outages are frequent. Phase 2 would concentrate on interconnectors and grid reinforcement so that cheap power can move. Phase 3 would add larger hydropower and gas efficiency upgrades to supply baseload and ramping capacity. In practice, all three phases overlap because construction schedules do not align neatly across borders. There is also water to consider. Burkina Faso has a long history of building dams primarily to irrigate and store water. That is vital for food security. When you add hydropower turbines to a dam that was designed for irrigation, you must keep irrigation as the first priority. The river flow that turns a turbine is the same flow that feeds a field. In drought years, you need contracts that define who gets what. That requires governance, not just engineering. Security matters. Work crews cannot string lines or pour concrete if corridors are unsafe. That reality does not make grid dreams impossible, but it imposes sequencing. You start where you can build safely and you use the revenue and reliability gains from those early wins to fund the next set of projects. Now the technology stack. Imagine a control room in Abidjan or Cotonou that sees the entire region as a single living organism. Algorithms forecast the next day's solar output, wind patterns, and industrial demand. Batteries are dispatched not as an afterthought but as first-class assets. Frequency regulation is automated. Market rules allow a generator in Ghana to sell into Burkina Faso on an hourly basis, and settlement systems pay the money in days, not months. That is a market people will invest in because cash actually moves when electrons move. On financing, the key is to de-risk what investors fear most: currency and counterparty risk. If a power purchase agreement is priced in local currency that can swing dramatically, lenders will demand higher returns or stay away. You can fix that with partial risk guarantees from development banks, with escrow accounts that ring-fence revenue, and with blended finance that absorbs first losses. You can attract domestic capital by issuing regulated asset-based bonds tied to transmission lines with tariff adjustments that are formula-driven and transparent. You can even link some returns to verified climate benefits, monetizing reduced diesel consumption via carbon markets where that makes sense. Let's talk about jobs. A build-out at scale would employ tens of thousands directly in construction and operations, and many more indirectly. The workforce plan would include training technicians for solar and battery maintenance, high-voltage line crews, substation engineers, and control room operators. Vocational schools would run accelerated programs aligned to specific projects. Local content rules, if designed smartly, would build domestic capability without stalling projects. The social impact is immediate. Electrified clinics mean fewer vaccine losses, safer surgeries, and better maternal care. Electrified schools mean extended study hours and digital curricula that actually load. Electrified farms mean cold chains that cut food waste and raise farmer incomes. Electrified towns mean street lights, safer nights, and businesses that can plan beyond daylight. What are the pitfalls? Overpromising and under-delivering erodes public trust. Poorly designed tariffs can leave utilities bankrupt. Corruption in procurement can turn a needed substation into an overpriced scandal. Hydrological misreads can leave a shiny dam underperforming for lack of water. Transmission lines that stop at borders because two regulators could not agree are monuments to paperwork, not progress. These are not reasons to quit, they are reasons to design with discipline. So where do the viral claims come from? Some are built on real building blocks. There are new dams being discussed or built, with irrigation and sometimes power components. There are real grid interconnections under construction. There are real solar parks feeding into national systems. Stitch those together, add patriotic optimism, round up the costs generously, and you can arrive at a stunning number on a thumbnail. The task for serious people is to turn that motivational story into sequenced, funded projects that survive contact with the real world. If you were Traore and his peers across the region, here is a credible way to turn the energy of the moment into metal in the ground. First, publish a joint regional pipeline with project-by-project transparency, technology, capacity, location, environmental status, procurement status, and financing structure. Second, standardize contracts so investors are not learning new legal systems for every border they cross. Third, establish a fast-track for grid-critical right-of-way approvals with fair compensation and anti-corruption audits built in. Fourth, set realistic construction schedules and report monthly, not yearly. Fifth, communicate like an airline. If a project slips, explain why, show the fix, and update the arrival time. Trust grows when the public can see the dashboard. What would success look like in everyday life? It looks like a tailor in Bobo Dioulasso plugging in a second sewing machine without fearing a blackout. It looks like a tech hub in Accra testing hardware all day and all night. It looks like a rice mill in the Niger River Valley running efficiently so farmers capture more value locally. It looks like a clinic vaccine fridge that just works. That is not romance. That is development. Let's put some numbers on the ambition without falling into fantasy. A plausible decade-long regional program could add many gigawatts of new renewable capacity, upgrade or replace aging gas turbines for efficiency and reliability, deploy large-scale batteries at key substations, and complete the main interconnectors that finally make the regional market real. It would not eliminate every blackout. It would, however, shift the system from chronic scarcity to planned abundance. There is also a role for nuclear in some countries, particularly Ghana, which has considered adding a first plant to its mix to stabilize baseload and hedge fuel risk. Nuclear is not a near-term solution for most West African countries due to licensing, cost, and skills requirements, but it is part of the long game for a subset of the region. Meanwhile, distributed solar and mini-grids remain the fastest way to close the last-mile gap for rural communities that might otherwise wait years for a national grid connection. So, is there an $800 billion Traore master plan on the table today that is signed, financed, and building? No. Is there space and need for a regional program that could cumulatively reach that scale over time when you add generation, grid, storage, and last-mile upgrades across many countries? Yes. Should leaders harness the energy of that viral narrative to lock in real money for real projects with ruthless transparency? Absolutely. Here is how I want to bring you into the story. Does it matter if the original headline was exaggerated if the result is a serious pipeline of projects that lights homes and powers clinics? Should we demand perfect messaging first, or push for perfect execution first? If you had to pick only two priorities to fund immediately, massive solar plus storage or transmission backbones, which would you choose and why? If you live in the region or invest in it, what would make you trust a power contract enough to put money in? If you are in the diaspora, would you buy a green bond that funds substations in a place you care about? What is the one thing you want leaders to do differently so that 5 years from now we are not still talking in the conditional tense? Before we close, I want to address you directly. If you found value in an analysis that digs beneath the thumbnails and into the wiring, support this work. Subscribe to AfriPol Lens so you do not miss the next deep dive. Like this video so the algorithm understands that serious conversations are worth amplifying. Share it with someone who throws around big numbers without asking what wires and transformers lie underneath. And tell me in the comments what topic deserves this treatment next: regional gas reforms, the future of mini-grids, or the truth about so-called secret megaprojects. Thank you for staying with me. Real progress is made when we care enough to ask hard questions and then stick around long enough to demand honest answers. The lights will not come on because of a headline. They will come on because people planned well, financed honestly, built safely, and kept at it. Do you think a regional grid can work if even one or two countries do not play fair on payments and enforcement, or is full participation essential? If you had to allocate limited capital, would you prioritize connecting more people to a weak grid now or strengthening the backbone first and connecting later? If you could decide a single national policy change to unlock private investment in power, what would it be? Would you accept slightly higher tariffs for a few years if it guaranteed reliable power and eliminated the need for diesel generators, or should subsidies remain until incomes rise? Which technology do you believe will define West Africa's baseload in a decade? Gas with carbon capture, advanced nuclear, or a deep mix of renewables balanced by storage and interconnectors? Subscribe to AfriPol Lens for grounded reporting on Africa's power story. Like this video if you want more long-form breakdowns that go beyond slogans. Comment with your answers and your lived experience, what is working, what is failing, and what you want leaders to hear. Your voice will shape which projects we investigate next and which myths we pull apart.